Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Beardzone Podcast college episode this time.
Oh.
I know, right? Little shake up. You know, we had the two
First time
pro
on YouTube
episodes,
with the college.
right? The two pro episodes. Now we're working into the college episode. I'm your host this time, Glenn. I got the original Beardzone host, David, with me here. How you doing?
How's it going? You know, Glenn, I can't thank you enough for bringing me into the football world. I've said it multiple times this year. And, it's just been a lot of fun. And now we're getting ready for the draft. You know, Michigan is still on that high of the national championship victory over Washington. But now, hey, we're getting closer to the Super Bowl in the NFL world. And then as soon as that Super Bowl ends, it's draft time with the combine and everything. So I'm excited to get into this little bit of breakdown for the quarterbacks coming into this year's draft.
Yeah, and anyone who was listening to last week's episode, I told y'all we're going to be touching some college quarterbacks and how the Beard Zone sees these top five. You know, where there's I think roughly 10 quarterbacks in this mix this year. It's really healthy, really talented, and I would love to break down every single person. But I picked 5 people. Dave kind of bounced it off with, offline. And for everyone that doesn't know, we talk offline all the time about some of these guys. And some of y'all are probably going to like my picks. Some of y'all are going to be a little hurt. That's all I'm going to say. But let's break it down. You know, this is how we're going to get after it. It's going to be, I'm going to say something. Dave's going to give me some banter, most likely, and be like, oh, I didn't know this about the college world. I love you, Dave. But I had to bring him into the college fold.
I'm a baby in it. You know, I'm a rookie. I'm going into my sophomore year. I don't anticipate on having the sophomore slump, going into next year. Mm-hmm. So I'm ready, man. I'm ready to get into this draft analysis and really kind of fully emerge myself. Because, when I jumped into the college season this past year, it didn't start until probably a couple weeks in, so we were already past the combine and the draft and everything, and we were actually into the games. Now, this year, watched it all the way through, watched the Natty, now coming back around from the beginning to start it out with the combine and the draft and everything else like that. So the pro days, I know that the pro days are a big kind of like draft board mixer if we have a standout. I'm excited to get into it, man. I really am.
I just want to start with, I was 100% right when it came to the evaluations of Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, and C.J. Stroud, y'all. I said C.J. Stroud was the best in that draft.
We don't know about Richardson, though, yet.
Yeah, he got injured. But still, as we watched this year play out, we saw that C.J. Stroud is legit, and I called it. I just want to throw that out there before we break the top 5 down. And we got some honorable mentions, too. So,
for sure.
To start, the Beard Zone top 5 for this draft of the 2024 NFL draft. And as far as quarterbacks, right? Quarterbacks, top 5.
Quarterbacks.
Starting at number 1, I got Drake Maye, right? 2, I got Jayden Daniels. 3, Caleb Williams. 4, Penix Jr. And then,
my guy,
rounding out the top 5, Bo Nix, Mr. Senior himself, 6 years, whatever. Honorable mentions, though, are Jordan Travis. I would have probably put him in the top 10, or top 5, rather. But he got injured really late in the season. I don't know where he's going to play out. Same thing with Hendon Hooker with Tennessee, right? Those injuries don't play into it yet. I don't know. The other one was Michael Pratt from Tulane. I think he's this draft's Brock Purdy. I think he's a hidden gem that a lot of people are going to pass on because he played for Tulane. He played all 4 years, though. He was an absolute gunslinger. He's very mobile in the pocket. He's not the most electrifying guy, but he will absolutely get you some touchdowns and some wins.
So he's what Cam Newton likes to say, a game manager.
He would absolutely put him in that category, yes.
Hey, there you go.
That's
all right, though.
You got Brock Purdy in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, so that game manager is in the NFC Championship game. So, exactly. Shout out to him.
So, to start, we're going to go from bottom to top as far as how we see this analysis and fits and stuff like that. So, Bo Nix sitting at number 5. because of age. He's played at Auburn. People forgot about his time at Auburn. He's incredibly dynamic. He's electrifying on his feet. He can absolutely put the ball on a dime, just like Penix Jr. He's very accurate. Bo Nix is incredibly accurate. I think he ended with the highest completion percentage in FBS. I don't know if it's history or not, but I would have to double check those stats. And we're not going to go over stats. Let's be real. All top 5 guys have tons of stats that we can go over till we're drop dead. So,
well, and that's why they're in the top 5, right? Because they
exactly
kind of fluffed up the stats, and so it doesn't always translate well when you get to the big boy league. It's good for college, it's good for trophies, it's good for wins, but when it comes down to it, it doesn't always translate well to the big boy league. So that's why you can't really go off of the stats.
100%, and you hit it on the head. But if I were to look at Bo Nix and try to compare him to someone in the NFL, I would say that he's more of Mariota with a better arm, better reading. I know Mariota won the Heisman and everything else like that, but as we progress through Bo Nix's career in college, because he was there for so long, he was a lot better at getting those pre-snap reads and watching and adjusting to the safety shifts and stuff like that.
Pre-snap reads is going to be huge, though, in the NFL because you don't have a lot of time in the NFL. And depending on what team you get drafted by, you might have less time than some of the other guys because your offensive line isn't that great, And odds are your offensive line isn't going to be that great because especially for some of these guys that we're going to be talking about today, these guys, they're going to be picked, in the higher first rounds. Some guys might fall into, day 2, but a lot of these guys are going to be going to teams who are in this situation to pick them because they're not a good team. And so I feel like as much talent as you have, right? You can have really, really good talent coming into the NFL, which is great, right? You need to be an athlete to play in the NFL. But when it comes down to the quarterback position, you want to have a guy who's going to be able to make quick reads and be able to, make those throws when the pressure is there.
I mean, also keep in mind, when we do these evaluations, some of it comes into the actual physicality of it. That's why, like, Anthony Richardson went so high, and he's a freak of nature. And we'll have to see how he plays out in the 2024 season. And Bo Nix is only sitting at 6'2", 210, 215 pounds. He's not the biggest guy in the bunch, but I do think he has a lot to offer. I don't know about you, Dave, as far as how he fits into a scheme. I think he's very mendable, very moldable. He is a little older, so you might have I'm kind of stuck in the weeds type deal, but he has shown that he can adapt, even going from Auburn to Oregon.
So how would you where do you think if Bo Nix is going to have a successful career, right? If let's just say perfect scenario, he's healthy, which team do you find it? Do you see, because I mean we got a lot of quarterback needy teams. So the first team that kind of pops into my head who has a high draft pick is the New England Patriots, and they have a new head coach. Do you think that he would be all right in that system? Is that a system that you think that, I mean, granted, we don't necessarily know the system, right, because of it's a new head coach. But if we're looking at just overall, like, the team around him, I mean, he doesn't have that great of an offense. I mean, he doesn't have any weapons. Let's just be honest about that. He has a pretty solid running back. But, I mean, outside of that, is it New England? Is it maybe the Las Vegas Raiders who have weapons?
I would say if you're gonna get a guy, so this is the wild thing. I'm trying to think off the top of my head because this part is not scripted at all. By the way, anyone who's ever listened to this, sometimes
we don't do scripts around here. We try sometimes, but it doesn't work.
Patriots would be an interesting mix because you do have a new head coach. It's a different type of system that I think he's used to, but Bo Nix can adapt. I think he is more suited towards something like I don't know why either the Commanders or the Vikings are popping out to me.
Oh, the
Probably
Vikings, maybe,
because of the
yeah.
Kirk Cousins injury, and I don't know where he's going to end up. I think New England likes to stay where they're comfortable. Bo Nix would come in pretty much ready, but as high as the other top four, it's kind of hard to say. So I think that's why I think I'm leaning towards the Vikings or the Commanders, and I'm
I
not
like
sure
the
why.
Vikings. I think I like the Vikings because if you think about it, they do have a good offense, right? They have a about a middle of the pack defense. I feel like offensive line isn't horrible. So and I mean, to me, I mean maybe it's just because I don't know, but I do. I like the Vikings. I do like that pick because you got Justin Jefferson, then you got Jordan Addison, who had a pretty good rookie year, especially with Kirk Cousin at the reins. And you could even bring him in and not necessarily get rid of Kirk Cousins, right? You could do a whole like what seems to be the success right now in the NFL. Patrick
Yep.
Mahomes, best quarterback in the league, sat behind Alex Smith for a year. Jordan Love, freaking lighting it up this year.
It's set
First
three
year with the
years behind
Packers,
Rodgers.
sat 3 years behind Rodgers. So, and Kirk Cousins isn't a bad quarterback. He's a very good quarterback in the NFL. Smart,
Yep.
can make the plays, can make the reads, has the talent. Now, allow him to kind of mold Bo Nix. Maybe have him sit for a year. Pay Kirk Cousins, right? Because I think he still has 1 year left in his contract.
Yep. He
And
does.
then let your future quarterback, step in after this year. Get him adapted to the offense. So maybe that's the pick.
Maybe. And that's why I think it's so interesting because you have Kirk Cousins in that seniority, and he had an Achilles injury, which seemed to be very rampant this year. And you have Bo Nix, who
Yeah.
could potentially, bridge that gap for the Vikings just in case. I don't think they cut Kirk Cousins. I think they stick with him, and if they do pick up Bo Nix, it'd be an absolute compliment to that thing. And he's more mobile than Kurt. So, but moving on to a purple team, right? You got Michael Penix, my next pick, number 4. Michael
My
Penix
guy.
is.
I
I
love
know
Penix Jr.
he is a little older. Same thing with Bo
Eh,
Nix, but I think he's better at the reads. He's better at the delivery of the deep ball and accuracy, as we saw with both of their meetings.
yeah.
Yes, the national championship game kind of poked some holes, and he had an injury, which I don't know where he sits on that. It was his ribs, which is always kind of an iffy thing. But I do think he's still a little bit better than Bo Nix, especially when it came to the Heisman voting and everything else. Penix is not as mobile as Nix, but he absolutely can feel the pressure at all times. And like I said, I think his pre-reads are better. Not only does he see the safety shift, but he notices where the mic is a little bit better. He notices when the cornerbacks are actually shifting to more of a man versus zone. Now he does have a crazy, weird delivery, like you mentioned a couple episodes ago. And if I were to attribute him to anybody, sorry, in the pros or
Anybody.
as previously played, he reminds me of like a mixture of
I like Philip
no,
Rivers. When
if you see, you read my mind, Philip Rivers or Matt Stafford. It's like that weird like side thing,
Yeah.
and he can absolutely chuck it down the field, both of which are very accurate.
It's like he's like
Yeah,
shot putting it.
it's like he starts here and it looks like he ends like he does something weird, but he
Yeah.
actually brings it like a slingshot.
Yeah.
He
And the thing
has
about Bo Nix, or not Bo Nix, I'm sorry. The thing about Michael Penix is that something that we saw, or something that I saw last year, a little bit, or I didn't see it, but I heard it a lot, right? Was CJ Stroud makes NFL throws. When I watched Michael Penix Jr. and the games that I watched him play this year, he made some NFL throws. So that's why I'm so high on this guy. Plus the fact that he's a Tampa boy, so I gotta support him. But he makes accurate NFL throws, and so that's why I like him. And that's why I think he's going to translate well to the NFL.
You hit the nail on the head there. He does make his NFL throws. He does the short pass. He hits the slants. And everyone was watched his deep ball. It's on par with Jayden Daniels, and we'll get to that later. But he shows incredible mental acuity and calmness in the pocket, and that's why I have him at 4 versus 5. Now, could someone argue me against Bo Nix being at 4 and Penix at 5? Absolutely. But I think Penix still has that little edge. And if I had to pick an NFL team, Jets or Seahawks. Because same thing with Bo Nix. If he had to sit out a year due to his rib injury or whatever, he can sit there and learn the system. Geno Smith proved that he is the comeback player of the year previously. Didn't play too bad this year, but he did show some hiccups here and there. The changeup with Pete Carroll coming out of the head coach. That's why I think the Seahawks might be able to take a chance staying on the West Coast with their boy in Penix, not going very far. The Jets, how long does Aaron Rodgers really have? And Zach Wilson may not be your guy. You have no idea if he's going to get on the field. We saw, he can throw for 4 touchdowns or he can throw for 4 interceptions.
Yeah, he's a white Jameis Winston, though, man. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. Spot on there. But if Penix came in, he has the maturity that I think Zach Wilson lacks. And he can bridge that gap from the Rodgers era of the Jets, which we still haven't seen, and can potentially come in for the Jets. If I had to pick
the Jets have something that the Washington didn't have. A defense.
I mean, Washington had a defense. They just got beat by. And Michigan has a spectacular,
but not on the caliber of New York Jets.
No, and that's what I think would absolutely complement that scenario too. And I think Seattle has mid-tier type defense, so that's the two that I would potentially pick. And
I like that for the Seattle. I like Seattle too because they have young wide receivers, and I think looking at what's his name? He has that really weird last name. He was a rookie this year. Jackson Smith.
Yeah.
But Jackson Smith kind of reminds me of his wide receivers right now in Washington.
Oh, Naduke? Yeah. And Polk, which, by the way, both of them are spectacular, and I think they're absolutely, at minimum, second round. And so to keep this in mind, everybody, we're going over quarterbacks now, and we're going to have running backs, we're going to have wide receivers. Wide receivers and quarterbacks in this particular draft of 2024, insane amount of talent. Yes.
Deep.
Yeah, and in Penix, he could easily fit in any system. He has shown that he can do the play action. What I think they'll be taking a risk on is potentially his age. I know everyone says that, but heck, you got Jordan Love with 3 years on the bench and coming in pretty smoothly. Moving into number 3, which is apparently ESPN's golden child of Caleb Williams. And I don't have him at 1 and 2, and I'll get to that. But Caleb Williams, from a physical standpoint, is exactly what you want from a quarterback. He's got the size, he's got the arm, he's got, I wouldn't say questionable accuracy, but I wouldn't say dead-on accuracy like the previous two. He has shown to take some risk. He comes from oh my gosh, I can't think of the head coach right now, from Baker and Jalen Hurts and Kyler Murray, USC's head coach. I can't remember the
Cliff Kingsbury?
No.
No.
I cannot remember, but he has. Anyways, as we digress there, Caleb Williams shows all this stuff. He can do play action, everything else. The one thing that I think he really needs, 2 things: his pocket presence and his sensing of pressure. Right, he's immediately going to take that pressure and flee to the outsides, just like Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, and Jalen Hurts do. They flee to the outside, and he has to rely on his 3rd and 4th reads at that point. Now, the next thing is his mental maturity. I said this in previous episodes as well. I don't think Caleb Williams has the mental maturity that the rest of these five guys or other four have. And when I say that is, we see these tweets, we see all this other action. I don't know if it's his dad, I don't know if it's him, I don't know if it's agent or whatever, but you want stock in the team that's going to draft you. Let's be real, dude. You are earning your place in the NFL in the first 5 years of your contract, if you even get 5 years. So you want to prove your worth as a previous Heisman winner and all this other accolades and crap. You have to prove your worth. And if you're going to come in and prove it, you can't show up like Bryce Young. Bryce Young was outrageously humble. That's the 3 things that they had, the 3 players. You had Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, and CJ Stroud all had the ability to be humble.
Yeah.
I don't know if Caleb Williams has that. He is shown to be somewhat immature mentally, and that does absolutely translate to the NFL on-field production. Now,
and that's you touch base on a couple of things there, because I don't like Caleb Williams. I've expressed it to you in our group chat, with Theo. Shout out Theo. It's just, I don't, coming from a guy who didn't watch college, more than in depth like I did this year, more than just this year. I heard all these things about Caleb Williams, especially as a Tampa fan, because he was supposed to be our next quarterback. That was going to be our next quarterback because we were going to be in position to draft him. Go ahead, tank for Caleb Williams. So I was like, okay, I'm going to watch this guy this year. And the games that I watched him, yes, did he show talent? Absolutely. Absolutely. You don't win the Heisman and not be talented. Did he show athleticism? Absolutely. Is he a physical? Is he good physically? For sure. But you just said one thing in your little breakdown of Caleb Williams and in his game. His pocket awareness and his pocket presence need to get improved before he makes it and he does a good transition into the NFL. And the team that's going to draft him, he's going to be thrown into the fire first year. This isn't going to be a, hey, let's draft Caleb Williams. Let's have him sit. This is going to be a CJ Stroud, a Bryce Young, an Anthony Richardson. This is the face of the franchise. We're putting stock in him. And apparently, he wants a part of that stock. But it's like you're going to be put into the fire. And when you get put into the fire and you face defenses that have, think about if he goes to any team in the NFC West. You have Nick Bosa and Chase Young coming after you. You have teams with Myles Garrett on the other side of the ball. You have teams with Aaron Donald on the other side of the ball. You have teams with the guy from the Jets. I'm blanking on his name right now. But Vita Vea. You have some William Anderson, stud edge rusher that just came out of last year's
Hunter
draft
out
class.
of the Vikings too.
Yeah, Max Crosby. You know what I mean? Like, you have grown men who are getting paid a lot of money, and their only job is to instill fear and to hurt you and to hit you. Yeah. And if you don't have the pocket awareness, and if you don't have he's going to have to rely solely on his offensive line, which I know all quarterbacks do, but there are some quarterbacks that have the pocket awareness to move around, to shift, and everything else like that. And if Caleb Williams isn't showing that, it's going to be a dumpster fire wherever he goes. Wherever he goes. I hope he does well, because at the end of the day, I hope all these guys are successful. This is their dream. This is what they worked so hard for and everything else like that. But bring down the ego a little bit, man. Like, I get it. But since you were, and I said this too, you were the top rated draft prospect over the last 2 years, right? Like, you were the projected number 1 overall pick for at least 2 years. From an outside fan coming into the college world this year, I thought I was going to see a mini version of Jesus, because of how well he was talked about. And then he puts up a mediocre year. Like, honestly, let's be real. It wasn't anything special. So it's like, to me,
it's hard to repeat that, though. It's hard to repeat that Heisman stuff.
I get that. I do. But do something, and don't go running and crying. And some people like that. They were like, "Oh, it just shows passion. It shows how much he cares." To me, I'm like, that's a sore loser. He's never lost before, and now he's losing, and he doesn't know how to deal with it.
I agree with that 100%. And as you're saying all of this stuff, right? And we have to look at potentially who he's going to get drafted by. Everyone thinks he's going to go straight up to the Bears. I think the Bears are in contention to get a quarterback.
Lord help him if he does.
Right? And I don't think the Bears' best interest is a quarterback right off the bat. I think they can absolutely wait and pick a gem in the second round or later on in the first round if they really care to take that gamble. And the Bears are absolutely in contention to take any of the top 5. I'm not going to disagree with any of that. They're their own organization. They've shown to take risk in the past. But if you look at Caleb Williams, Commanders, Falcons, or...
I was going to say Atlanta.
Or the Cardinals. I know they got Kyler Murray on some stupid contract right now, but he's been known to get injured. The Falcons absolutely need a quarterback, as we saw the carousel go around this year with them, and it was an absolute travesty. And the Commanders, I don't know why they're going to get away from Mark Howell. I think he's fine. But everyone keeps saying that they need a quarterback, and if you're going to play the cards, might as well just draft a quarterback at this point. If you're going to just talk about it, be about it. I'm sorry. He could fit. I think he can fit. I think he can understand an offense. I think he can do his reads and everything else. But where he found his exposure to his game was Notre Dame. Notre Dame absolutely embarrassed Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
And I think where he'll probably learn the most is probably going back to a similar system like potentially the Falcons or the Cardinals, more so than Washington.
Dude, the Cardinals, think about it this way. If the Cardinals draft Caleb Williams in the last, I don't know how many years, but let's just say handful. They drafted Josh Rosen in the first round.
Yep.
The very next year, they drafted Kyle Murray in the first round. They just paid Kyle Murray. And now they go on to get Caleb Williams.
It would be insane. But
I like the Atlanta Falcons. I think that maybe that would be a good scheme for him. Well, not scheme, right? Because, there's no coach there yet, right? Looks like maybe Bill Belichick, but who knows? So, but he has weapons at least. He has a pretty good offensive line. So if he's going to be successful, it's with probably the Atlanta Falcons. And I don't like to say that because I'm a Tampa fan, and what if this guy is the next, big thing in the NFL? And, he's as successful and as talented and, as everyone is saying that he's going to be. As a Tampa fan, I don't want to play that twice a year. But as an NFL fan and as a newly college fan, I'm rooting for the kid. I just don't know where he would be able to go to be. What about the Raiders?
They kind of signed on with Jimmy Garoppolo as far as being committed to a contract. Jimmy Garoppolo has also been very injury prone. And Aiden McConnell has shown that he can be there for them if they need to. I don't know if he's their future just yet. I think that's to be seen, but that was his rookie exposure there. If the Raiders do go for a quarterback, I would suggest that they go probably second or third round to see who's left in this whole chaos mix. The one wild card to this whole scenario is how long do the Cowboys stick with Dak Prescott? Do you jump to go get Caleb Williams and kind of piss off the rest of the draft, or do you go for somebody else?
Jeez.
If you look at how they play,
I didn't even think about
Dak Prescott and Caleb Williams seem to be very similar. And how they play. Not necessarily results, but I don't think the Cowboys would take somebody that early.
But I don't know. You just kind of broke my brain with that one. I'm not too sure how
you did that to me earlier. So, but hitting the recent Heisman winner, you got Jayden Daniels. I am completely amazed with this kid. So, he went to Arizona State and then had some injuries and all the stuff with Herm Edwards and everybody else. And they also had Rashad White. Keep that in mind. These dudes were on the same team at some one point or another, and they still didn't seem to win. So he played for LSU instead, right? wins a Heisman, shows outrageous deep ball accuracy. I think he was third behind Penix and Bo Nix as far as accuracy level. Jayden Daniels, and to put this into perspective, he's a Heisman winner. And the other two that I can think of that kind of embody how he plays is RG3, because he's very mobile and he can absolutely sling it, and Lamar Jackson. Maybe not as fast and as elusive, but he plays like Lamar Jackson, except a little bit smarter in the earlier years. Like we're watching Lamar play a little bit more.
Isn't he thicker too? Like, isn't he just like a bigger?
He is a little bit bigger than Lamar, but not as big as RG3. So like imagine a mixture of those two guys. And RG3 was incredibly accurate at coming out of college, and injuries were the only thing that stopped RG3. 100% believe that. He shows maturity in the pocket. He is a little older, given his time in the NCAA. I think he's absolutely on par with being potentially a number 1 pick. I put him in number 2 because Drake Maye, I think, has a slight better edge as far as natural talent and everything else. But Jayden Daniels is absolutely spectacular from a holistic player. And if the Falcons are not going to take Caleb Williams, they absolutely should be taking Jayden Daniels. The Cowboys should absolutely try and steal this guy. The Commanders, anyone who has a solid brain and is not going to take Drake Maye, absolutely should take Jayden Daniels. Look at the last LSU quarterback, Joe Burrow. So
yeah, Joe,
and that was an absolutely talented, stellar team, and he put these dudes on the map. If you had two deep ball guys, is Penix
the what?
And Jayden Daniels. The deep ball accuracy.
Okay. So what if? Because I know that we touch base a little bit about it with Caleb Williams, and it seems to be like either Caleb Williams or Marvin Harrison Jr. For the number 1 overall spot with the Bears. Do I think the Bears need to take a quarterback? No, I don't. I think that they should draft weapons, get an offensive line, protect Justin Fields. Allow the guy to be a pocket passer because I feel like he wants to be. But he's forced to be this athlete that he is, and he produces. He's good at escaping the pocket and extending the play and everything else like that. But if they do go quarterback, everyone's just like, oh, it's going to be Caleb Williams. But what if they go with someone like Jayden Daniels? What if they go with someone like Drake Maye?
I think you get an absolutely stellar product out of Jayden Daniels versus
Justin Fields.
See, his name just eluded me. It's just so Justin Fields, I think, absolutely has the talent and the brain to play at the position of quarterback for the NFL. I don't know if the Bears are the correct fit for him. If the Bears are going to trade, I would suggest that they potentially trade him away, keep Trubisky or whatever, trade him to somebody else, say the Falcons, and get more draft picks. Because they already reaped the benefits from Carolina. Yeah. You could steal Jayden Daniels or Drake Maye and then move on. And you could probably still pick up Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, if you don't pick up Marvin Harrison Jr. in the first 3 teams, you're not getting them. Let's be real. Besides the Bears...
What about Seahawks? Because you keep saying deep ball. So when you say deep ball, Seahawks, I think of Russell Wilson.
If Geno Smith can't pan out, I think Jayden Daniels comes in and learns from him. Everyone remembers Geno Smith, right? From West Virginia.
Yeah.
Very similar play. Very similar play to Jayden Daniels. It's almost like you get a younger version of Geno Smith. I would argue way better. But like I said, Jayden Daniels is more of that RG3 Lamar Jackson build type guy. It's like a hybrid version of them. You get the accuracy, you get the arm, you get the elusiveness. Anyone who watches Jayden Daniels knows that he can absolutely pick apart deep ball.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting. Jayden Daniels definitely made his draft stock go way up this year with the performance that he made. And I mean, I feel like that there's not just one answer in this draft class with quarterback. Like, there's multiple candidates who, if you draft him and you build a solid system around him, you're going to have a guy, and that's kind of what's cool about this draft coming up. But this is also probably what makes it, very difficult for a lot of GMs this year, because they're like, I don't know what to do.
Plenty of talent.
So,
and plenty of talent. The person at number 1 is Drake Maye. And he's got the size, he's got the arm, he's got the adaptability. He has shown that he understands how to evolve as a quarterback in what he has to face.
The number one thing that I keep hearing about Drake Maye, and I'm going to be honest with you, Glenn, I didn't watch, I don't think, one game of him this year. I didn't. But the number one thing that I keep hearing about this guy is that, yes, he is a good quarterback, but he has not played a good defense because of the conference that he was in. What are your... I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. This is me just hearing, and that's why I'm coming to you to ask that question.
So Clemson is no longer good?
I don't...
That's what I would ask. FSU is not good anymore? FSU's defense and Clemson's defense, which used to be the premier team, by the way, throughout this last decade, is not good anymore. That's what I would pitch.
So, did he play them this year?
UNC? They always play Clemson.
What about FSU?
I can't remember. I'd have to go back and take a look. But if you watch how he reacts to... You can't tell me someone who doesn't play stellar defense. Brock Purdy.
Okay, fair enough.
He came out of the Big 12. Allegedly didn't play any stellar defenses and is up for the MVP race now for the NFL.
And in the NFC Conference Championship back-to-back years.
Exactly. So
yeah,
I shrug when I hear that. Now, if you take a look at his maturity and how he's progressed, as far as Drake Maye has great ability, great athleticism, good arm. He's more of that mixture of, I would have to say he's more like a Justin Herbert. Oh, he has that tall, like, presence and everything else, and he can put the ball wherever he wants to. He's accurate. I don't know about his footwork and stuff like that, but I do know he's quite elusive when it comes to pressure. And it's not like the Caleb Williams float to the outside, go for 3 and 4 threes. He actually goes in and shifts in the pocket as such to go through those second and third reads first. Now, like I said before, Drake Maye, Jayden Daniels could probably flip-flop. I think Drake Maye is the best definition for the NFL ready quarterback as far as athleticism, size, arm, tape, all that stuff. He can mold to an NFL team probably more so than the other guys.
Okay. I mean, like I said,
I would love for the Bucs to pick him up.
Really? Even with, I mean,
even
they're going to
Baker,
sign Baker.
Because Kyle Trask is clearly not our answer for long term. Baker still has some youth and can teach him to move on. I think the Falcons are probably in the mix.
Is he going to fall to 26? Could he fall to 26?
Drake Maye? No.
Yes.
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not. Someone will pick him up.
We would have to trade up.
Absolutely. If anybody below the top 10 teams wants this guy, they're going to have to trade up. Absolutely. Bears, Falcons, Cardinals, Commanders, Seattle, you name it. Even, it would be wild, though, if the Vikings go to grab him because of Kirk Cousins. That's also in the mix, too. You got the Jets in the same conversations that we had earlier in regards to the longevity of Aaron Rodgers and Zach Wilson potentially being a complete flop. And keep in mind, other teams that already have quarterbacks could potentially steal this guy, too. Dallas could come out and say, you know what, Dak, I know we have a no-trade clause in your contract, but you're going to sit because we can't seem to win anything close to an NFC Championship game. And
what if he just falls right into the lap of the New England Patriots there at number 2? It almost seems like that's the most likely scenario.
If we're talking about smart drafting, absolutely. The Patriots. I want the Patriots to suffer for the next 30 years because of who they had as a head coach, and they just need to. that they need to enjoy the rest of the next 30 years like the rest of the NFL did and had to suffer through that 2 decades.
Look at the Lions. Look what the Lions have just had to go through.
Prime example. Now the Lions are in an interesting scenario too, and same thing with the Rams. They have the Rams have a more senior quarterback with Stafford.
Yeah, but Matthew Stafford has probably like another 3 years with him.
Injuries.
He's a tough son of a gun, though, man.
I know, but he has injuries. Let's be real.
I get it.
I just don't think that Rodgers was Iron Man until he tore his Achilles in the 4th play of the season.
I think that was just karma, but I mean,
right?
Yeah, it's just me.
Right. But I think Drake Maye fits the mold for multiple teams, and that's why I put him at number 1 because of how he fits and how he plays and everything else. And, Mac Jones has been proven to, produce NFL quarterbacks. So, and he looks like a Justin Herbert to me. Justin Herbert came out of Oregon 100% ready for the pros, as we saw. And continue to see. If he didn't hurt his hand this year, who knows? The Chargers would have had a completely different team. Granted, their head coach was the primary issue there.
Yeah. Well, now they might just get Jim Harbaugh. I hear that's a negotiation right now.
Going back to a player coach scenario, D'Amico Ryans.
Yeah, I think so. Kind of to wrap this up, because I wanted to touch base on this earlier, but I decided to wait until we kind of got all the way through. We've seen it time and time again. We've seen great quarterbacks go to teams and they completely flop. And they never can get their career on track. We've seen quarterbacks to go to teams that we didn't really think too much of, and they've completely outplayed what we thought that they were going to do. Prime example, Brock Purdy.
Yep.
So I think it has to be the perfect marriage. And I've said that time and time again. Everyone's just like, oh, the Chicago Bears missed on Patrick Mahomes. I don't want to take anything away from Patrick Mahomes, but I don't think you would have the Patrick Mahomes of what we know now if he was with, who was it, Matt Nagy? Well, I guess Matt Nagy is with the Chiefs now, so who knows, maybe. So,
but you have the difference of Andy Reid.
Exactly.
And anyone who's a Chiefs fan understands when they drafted Mahomes in 2017. They were like, oh, why are we drafting Mahomes? Blah, 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 blah. And he's your savior now. So
he is. Everyone thought the same thing with Jordan Love.
Yep.
Why are you drafting Jordan Love? We just had an MVP quarterback, and drafting him led him to another MVP season. We get it. But there has to be that perfect marriage. I said it in the beginning of the NFL edition of our podcast earlier this year, or I guess last year now, but whatever. Earlier this season, I did not believe from the jump that the Russell Wilson Sean Payton marriage was going to work.
You called it.
We saw a little bit of a fire there towards the middle of the season, and then it just completely collapsed. Broncos are now in a rebuild stage. They're going to lose Russell. I don't know what they're going to do with that money, but Russell's not their quarterback. They can't go back to Russell after the way that they ended last year. And so now you're like, you have to, there has to be that marriage. Tom Brady, again, I don't want to take any flowers away from him. But I don't know if we would have seen Tom Brady be Tom Brady if it wasn't for him being paired with Bill Belichick. Tom Brady helped Bill Belichick just as much. Yeah.
No, you mentioned the Broncos, man. You got my brain working. And
now, okay, so what about Jayden Daniels to the Broncos? What about Drake Maye to the Broncos? What if, because they're in a position where maybe they can trade up?
So keep in mind, they gave up a hefty portion of that trade to Seattle. Now,
that's right.
If the Broncos are going to play it smart in the draft, look at the top 5 that I selected in the honorable mentions, right? You got Jordan Travis and Michael Pratt. I don't know if Drake Maye is going to stay in there. Jayden Daniels absolutely won't. Neither will Caleb Williams. So you got Penix Jr. and you got Bo Nix and Michael
Right.
Pratt. I think Jordan Travis drops kind of low due to his injury, and I don't like saying that because the guy was absolutely spectacular. He doesn't have that size and that beefiness, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he's spectacular as far as an arm strength and accuracy in reading. Michael Pratt has the experience. Bo Nix and Penix have the absolute accuracy and reads too. I want to say this is so close too. For the Broncos, I think their best fit is Bo Nix because Bo Nix will absolutely fall down in the draft because of his age, and people don't want to take that risk. He has the maturity. I think he is similar to a Drew Brees, except way more mobile, and he can sling it down. If you want a more Drew Brees-esque to them, or Sean Payton, right? That's kind of who he meshed with. Absolutely, which would be more or less like a Michael Pratt or a Penix. So either of those three, I think, would fit in the Broncos mold.
I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, overall, I mean, just what this draft class is going to be looking like, and where people are going to fall. But I mean, we got running backs up on deck. We got wide receivers up on deck. We're going to kind of go through. We're not going to go through all the positions, right? But we're going to cover. Like we might throw a blanket over some positions, like defensive backs, linebackers, D line, that kind of stuff. We're definitely going to break it down for you. We're going to be here, every other week for the college edition, moving up forward until the draft. So that's just kind of going to be the schedule. We still are going to be having all the NFL podcasts every single week. So we're going to be coming to you. So if you're watching this is on Wednesday. So tomorrow, actually look out for our NFL pod because that's what we're going to be doing. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, this draft class, we said it earlier, you mentioned it earlier, Glenn, this draft class is deep with talent. And if you draft right, and if you draft smart, you're going to have a really good draft this year with some serious guys that you can be maybe picking up, day 2, day 3, that are going to be able to make serious impacts for your franchise. Just because of how deep this draft class goes. But I mean, I continue to look forward to these episodes just because it kind of gets my brain going and, teaches me some stuff about the college world that I maybe didn't know. So I appreciate that, Glenn. But yeah, man, I mean, I'm looking forward to, what we got next. What do we got next? What are we going to do? Are we going to do, you want to do like running back, wide receiver kind of tandem? Or, I mean, what are we thinking?
The wide receivers are incredibly deep, and I think since we hit the quarterbacks, I think we hit wide receivers next, and then we can move on to running backs, tight ends. If we can go from offense and switch to defense, I think that'd probably be a better and more methodical switch. Going
and let us know down in the comments. Let us know down in the comments what you want to see next. If we get comments that are saying, a specific position or, something like that, we'll go over it. Let us know. We definitely are, hey, we want to bring entertainment to you guys. So we definitely appreciate you guys. If you guys have made it all the way through this video, we very much appreciate it. It definitely supports us and what we're trying to do here at the Beard Zone. So welcome to the family. If you can hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that share button, that is the best way to help out everything that we are doing. Like I said, leave comments. We're there to engage with you guys. We also have our social medias. Glenn, as always.
Get our Gmail at the Beardzone Podcast at gmail.com. You got Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, at the Beardzone Pod. You got Facebook, the Beardzone Podcast, and then you got on Instagram, the Beardzone Football Podcast. And we engage on all platforms. I run the Facebook page, so if you see me posting some memes or whatever and you think I'm totally off base, go ahead and try and check me. I'm good with that. Dave usually runs our Twitter, same thing with the polls and everything else. You want to banter with Dave, go ahead. And, I mean, we do honestly monitor everything. Theo runs the Instagram. He's more AV tech related there, and he runs all the reels. If you got any tips for us, go ahead and shoot it. You want to banter, you want to trash talk, all that. We try to keep it clean. Some of y'all that's talked to us offline, that some of us have some pretty colorful language, so just let us know.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
but yeah, that's about it for the college episode, y'all. If you want something specific, let us know. But the next time, we're going to be hitting wide receivers. It's very healthy. But on that note, everybody knows we
What
bring you
is
the
it?
best content that we can think and come up with. And it's just three dudes chilling and talking some football. On that note,
That's all
everybody,
it is.
Beardzone out.